Do you ever think, Ron Paul was a OBGYN doctor from Texas. He delivered 4,000 babies. When he retired, he ran for office. Now you're in Texas and you are a celebrated doctor. When you have had enough working in the medical profession, would you ever consider running for office?
It's just sad the level and depravity of the corruption throughout our medical science.
I dealt with it by focusing on what my job is. From the time that I went into medicine to the right now where I am at my age, my job has been totally focused on doing what I can with the talents and the influence I have to make scientific advances to protect the health of the American public.
The intense desire to eradicate all the things that make us human. I do see a level of malevolence, principalities and powers that I cannot explain in mere material terms.
I'd have to laugh at that. They get up and really aim their bullets at Tony Fauci. Well, people could recognize there's a person there, there's a face, there's a voice you can recognize, you see him on television. So it's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science because I represent science.
Well, I'm privileged today to be joined by a very special guest, someone we always look forward to hearing from. He's been a powerful voice of truth about true, accurate medical knowledge and information during the wild times that we've undergone through the last few years. Dr. Peter McCullough joins me. How you doing, sir?
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great having you on. And I wanted to have you on particularly to talk about this disease X. At first I thought, man, they are so mad at Elon Musk, they've decided to brand the next pandemic after his own website. They really want to sear into the public's mind the idea that that is a very evil place to be.
Disease X is not Twitter. Disease X is a theoretical disease that people in this biopharmaceutical complex have been writing about for years, including Peter Daszak at the EcoHealth Alliance has been writing. I said, can't wait for disease X. It's going to infect mankind. It's going to have a high kill rate. Some are saying 20 times that of COVID. The Global Vaccine Alliance said disease X is going to be bird flu. And I think they were right.
Really? So bird flu. Now, they've been talking about bird flu for years. I remember back during the Obama administration, they would have these bird flu fear campaigns in the media, and nothing ever really came of it. What is going on with bird flu? Has a lab finally hit the jackpot in terms of making it very contagious for humans? Is that what we're talking about here?
There has been gain of function research on bird flu for decades now. Researchers have been working on this. Two doctors, Dr. Marikawa at University of Wisconsin, Dr. Ron Fouché at Rotterdam, the Netherlands. They've been trying to make this virus jump from human to human for a decade or more. Nothing's been in the open more than this. Bird flu infects chickens largely, sometimes cattle. The Chinese started vaccinating for this back in the 90s. It's made it way worse. So now the birds spread it around even more. The main method of handling it is kill all the birds. When one bird gets a bird flu, kill the whole poultry flock. I think that's been a disaster. They're going to have to let the birds get some natural immunity. We're talking about highly pathogenic H5N1 avian influenza, also known as bird flu. About 800 to 900 human cases when it spreads from the animal to the worker. And historically, it's had a 52.7% mortality rate, largely because of people, lots of handling the birds, Southeast Asia, no medical care, presenting late. The most recent outbreak, we've had 3 human cases in the United States. 2 of them were pink eye, 1 with some respiratory symptoms, all easily treated. So I don't think bird flu is going to be much of a human threat unless it starts spreading human to human. And if it does, believe me, we're going to nail the gain of function guys who've been working on this and the Southeastern Poultry Research Center in Athens, Georgia. We think that's where the most recent strain came out of. You know what they were doing, Dave? They were doing experiments in mallard ducks, migratory waterfowl. What a mistake. One of those guys gets out, they fly everywhere. You know, the media has not been asking the question, why did it spread from Texas to Iowa to Michigan? How did this happen? They didn't ask the question. They just think it's spontaneously arising. No, it's being spread by the ducks that fly all over. Wow.
And do we have any recourse to be able to stop this or sue this lab for spreading a migratory bird with a novel disease?
All these experts are saying we have to get ahead of nature. That's what Disease X researchers said. We have to get ahead of nature. We have to make it invade humankind and then come up with vaccines. So Disease X vaccines, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness and Innovation, that's that global center founded by Gates Foundation and World Economic Forum. They have an entire over 100-page white paper on Disease X. They said the whole reason to study Disease X is to have a Disease X vaccine. Sure enough, with bird flu, CSL Seqirus, a biotech company, has the Audens vaccine. It was FDA licensed in 2021 with no human data, ready to go for bird flu. They developed it with BARDA, a research unit of the military, 2021. And now the US has purchased, enough doses for millions of administrations. Why would the US military be developing a bird flu vaccine? And why in 2021? Now, news was out this week that Pfizer and Moderna are talking to the federal government about messenger RNA vaccines. CSL has a self-replicating messenger RNA vaccine in development. CEPI with the Koreans have a self-replicating messenger RNA vaccine. I got to tell you, bird flu is Disease X because people have an aspiration of mass vaccinating the world again. COVID wasn't enough. Now it's game on, Disease X, bird flu.
So is this going to be potentially more lethal than COVID or what? What is your thoughts on this?
So far, it's early, but the cases appear mild. It looks like this strain, and what we're tracking is H5N1 clade 2.3.44b. We actually got it down to the clade and the mutation that came out of the Athens, Georgia lab. This one, luckily so far, appears to be very benign. Pink eye and something easily treated with iodine nasal sprays and gargles, oseltamivir, Tamiflu, hydroxychloroquine. It's all going to cover it easily. So it doesn't appear to be very dangerous to humans. The reason why it's dangerous to animals is because they are incinerating all the animals instead of letting them get through it.
Yeah.
This is a mild version. I think we ought to have some observational studies to just see what is the mortality rate in birds. We can't destroy every last chicken because the mallard ducks are going to continue to spread it around.
Yeah. What about I've heard in the news, they've been saying that they're concerned about the virus being spread by the raw milk drinkers, the cow, the people that are drinking raw milk unpasteurized from cows are the ones that are going to spread the bird flu. How does that narrative get started and what's going on with that?
Yeah, I doubt it. Most of it is going to be through respiratory or touching. The cases of conjunctivitis, invariably the workers handle the animals and they touch their eyes. There's been a few tests of products in the store where they find some viral particles. And again, they're doing PCR testing. So we're talking about grossly inflated positive tests that are false positive tests. But even what they found is not active in the grocery store. Now they're kind of zeroing in on who drinks raw milk. I doubt that that's going to be a route of spread. It has to be airborne and come in through the nose and mouth.
So what is being done, if anything, to try to stop or hold these people accountable? It seems like the only politician you hear about who still does things ongoing about this matter and trying to hold people accountable is Senator Rand Paul. I know there's a few others too, but from you're very much involved in this fight for transparency and accountability. What are you hearing in terms of, is there going to be any accountability for the folks like Peter Daszak and Fauci regarding this gain of function research that they've lied about?
It's been slow progress, but credit to Brad Wenstrup, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Chip Roy, and others in the House. They've been plotting through this. They got to the point where Daszak clearly is one of the co-conspirators and one of the creators of SARS-CoV-2. So is Anthony Fauci, Ralph Baric at the UNC Chapel Hill, and Dr. Xingling Li in China. They're the four people who created COVID that got us sick. Fauci was pretending the whole time that he was responding to this, yet he knew he was part of the creation of this. And it was all covered up, by the way. That's the interesting. The emails show the cover up. They recently had David Morans in, who is Fauci's assistant, and they were using personal email accounts, changing characters and letters to try to throw off the FOIA requests. I mean, these guys knew what they were doing was wrong. They created a virus, they got the whole world sick, and then they tried to front vaccines on us. So
what's the best that we know? Did it get released in the Chinese lab, or did it get released in this at Ralph Baric lab here in America?
No, I think it got released from Wuhan, China. It may have been inadvertent. Former CDC director Redfield says that it was inadvertent. You probably got in the air conditioning system and got out. The first, patient zero, the first woman who died of it probably was a lab worker. But anyhow, but for Fauci and these guys to commission manuscripts, one written by Christian Anderson in Nature Medicine in April of 2020, saying it came out of Nature. And these guys fronted this for a couple of years. I mean, that's deplorable.
And they still haven't retracted that story, have they?
No, they haven't. And, on all the government agency websites, the National Security Administration, for instance, says, well, we think it came out of Nature, but with a low probability. Then they say, but it's not a bioweapon. Why do they say that? Why do they have to front that? It's because in 1975, we actually have some legislation saying that we can't be in the business of creating biological weapons. And so they tried to put that out there, but clearly it was a biological threat. We all got sick from it. There's a paper by Farkas in Military Medicine that's evaluated SARS-CoV-2 along about 36 criteria for biological weapons, and they've concluded that SARS-CoV-2 meets criteria for this. 2 papers by Yen also show that. So, I mean, we have to ask the question, was our government in the business of creating biological threats and then creating countermeasures, therapeutics and vaccines? And if doing so, by holding these, do these agencies or companies or entities, do they hold power? And when you read Peter Daszak at the EcoHealth Alliance, he aspires to hold many of these. He clearly wants power. And in his testimony, he said he's got 15,000 samples in Wuhan. The question is, what do they have there?
Yeah,
that's the question. And when this got out on social media, someone says, listen, he's got 15,000 strains of coronaviruses. And then immediately Twitter community notes posted a thing. No, it's not 15,000 coronaviruses. Well, how do they know?
Yeah. So are they still actively doing stuff at that biolab in Wuhan with Daszak's group?
Well, as far as we know, now Daszak has been debarred from federal funding, but that doesn't mean anything to Gates Foundation or Chinese Communist Party.
They have money laundering schemes to get that cash to them.
Well, they can fairly get grants or supports from CureVac or Sanofi or Moderna or Pfizer or from Gates Foundation. So, being debarred from federal funding is not much of a penalty. Now Daszak says, well, he's going to take his research to Duke University in Singapore. That's kind of currently where he's set up. But with the last time he was on Capitol Hill, I was messaging Brad Wenstrup through Twitter. I said, why don't you ask Daszak how many times he went to the Wuhan lab and his people there? Did they work at the bench with the Chinese? I mean, how closely were they involved? I'd want to know about Stefan Bainzel, the CEO of Moderna. He previously was with BioMérieux. BioMérieux built the biosecurity annex at Wuhan. How often was Bainzel in Wuhan? He was connected to Wuhan, China, years before he joined Moderna. There is a web here of people who were working on this, David, long before any of us figured this out.
And who are they working for? What's their? You said they want power. What kind of power do they want? What does Daszak want?
Well, look at the money that changed hands. Okay, Pfizer raked in billions. Moderna, which had no revenue, raked in billions. Gates Foundation invested in BioNTech at the perfect time, raked in huge profits. These guys are investing in themselves, investing in companies. They don't have to develop products because the companies pay for development. They don't have any marketing costs or distribution costs. They literally create a worldwide scare and then declare national and public health emergencies. The doors of treasuries open and the money funnels out to this biopharmaceutical complex. We've seen it happen for COVID-19, for monkeypox, and now bird flu. The same thing. The money is flowing, and this biopharmaceutical complex has figured it out. The big players are the WHO, World Economic Forum, the Gates Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, our U.S. agencies. UNAID is a big one, CDC, NIH, FDA, the companies that make vaccines, CureVac, Sanofi, BioNTech, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca. It's game on for the biopharmaceutical complex.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like they have every incentive to keep making those so-called accidents happen, so that's pretty disturbing. I wanted to ask you, since you mentioned the WHO, this news that we heard that the WHO treaty failed. Tedros announced that they weren't able to get it solidified. What's your take on that? I've heard some people say it could be a false surrender. They're going to come in at another angle and get something done. I mean, it's not going to be something that can be defeated that easily.
I tend to agree with that. Tedros Ghebreyesus, someone who's not a medical doctor, is in a real power position. He has no supervisor over him. WHO is a behemoth, 8,000 employees. They're trying to seek a $7 billion raise of money from its member states, 194 member states. I mean, this is a monster. They're building a giant biosurveillance center in Germany. What are they going to surveil? You and me? The WHO wants all dominion over all plants, animals, and humans through this Pandemic Treaty Alliance, international health regulations, but they don't even have to use that. They have a program called One Health. They could do it that way. The WHO, I don't think, is giving up easily. They've met tremendous resistance, and I give great credit to Reggie Littlejohn and Frank Gaffney at Sovereignty Coalition, Dr. Tess Lowry and Christoph Ploth at the World Council for Health. The Japanese are holding protests right now. The African countries have pushed back big time. So Tedros is saying, well, I don't think we can get this through, but they're not giving up yet. The WHO wants to give the orders on the next pandemic. If they could, they'd be calling the shots on bird flu. They could be actually destroying the entire world's chicken supply and beef supply and have us looking at becoming vegetarians or worse, eating lab meat or eating bugs, David. I mean, you can't make this up, but it's happening right now.
Well, so you think that's the real leverage point with this bird flu for them, is not necessarily what it could do for humans, but what it might do consolidating and destroying the livestock.
I think it's a food supply scare, and that's going to, it kind of welled up. Bird flu has been on the move, by the way, for decades, but clearly this strain's been out since 2021. It's been on the move, but the messaging all happened here about a month before the WHO meeting, and now we're about 150 days before the U.S. elections here. So we're going to see all kinds of things, but if we have a big constraint on the food supply, egg prices skyrocket and meat is at a premium, Americans are all in disarray on this. We're going to see how this plays out. The question is, will either side, our major Republican, major Democratic side, will either side be truthful with America on what's going on?
Right. Yeah. And, you have, people are turning towards more and more fake meat substitutes and plant burgers. These things are made with toxic seed oils, which, as we were one of the first shows to cover. Professor Bruce Hammock and his team at UC Davis showed that elevated levels of linoleic acid-based leukotoxin and patients who had died of COVID ARDS disease. So it's that comes from eating these omega-6 vegetable oils. So you eat these inflammatory omega-6 molecules in excess, and then so they're pushing you towards more inflammatory foods to, just setting you up for really horrible experiences with these diseases. So, I mean, it really is a shame that we have so many psychopaths. I always say, never get medical advice from a Malthusian. Okay, if they have a general philosophy that bets against human life to a maximal degree, don't get advice from them about what to do when you get an illness. Just stay away. It's probably a good instinct. It's probably a good heuristic to keep in mind. I wanted to ask you too. I saw on your, while I have you, on your Twitter page, on your McCullough Foundation, a breaking story that our new study finds promising methods to deactivate mRNA COVID-19 vaccines and shut off spike protein production. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, that's breaking work by Nick Hulscher, McCullough Foundation fellow from recent grad from University of Michigan. Small interfering RNA, which is, could be synthesized by a pharmaceutical company. I use them in practice right now. There's two I use called inclisiran and patirisan. I use them for other applications than COVID, but there could be a small interfering RNA that's designed to deactivate Pfizer and Moderna. This is a huge breakthrough. There's another technology called ribotech, a way to kind of sandwich it. We need to be able to turn off this genetic code. We think it's still active in people months, if not years afterwards. We're seeing cardiac arrest now years after taking the shots, blood clots, cancer. I mean, it's been awful. So we're hoping that this proposal could be taken up by one of the pharmaceutical companies. If these guys just want to make money, here's a chance at making money, but it would be odd to give more RNA in order to deactivate RNA, but we may have to do it.
Is there any, that's what I was going to ask you, is there any potential problems that might occur with using siRNA?
No, we use them now, and they've got a good safety track record. They only last in the body a couple days.
They don't alter the DNA or anything else like these other things do?
No, they're just very small fragments. They would bind to the code of Pfizer Moderna and just literally activate. The ribosomes couldn't read it. It would just lock in and just kill it. So it works for, I use inclisiran to target the RNA for PCSK9, which is a factor in cholesterol production. It works great. We use patirisan to block the production of something called transthyretin for amyloidosis. It works well. So this is a proposal. People are desperate for ideas. Do you know so many people, David, who took the shots, they really regret it?
Yeah. Are they still having elevated cases of myocarditis years afterwards now, and death and so many other things? Or
it's true. What we found is that so many people take the shots, there must be heart damage or inflammation. You can't always find it on blood testing or MRI. Many people have no symptoms, so they never see a doctor, and boom, the first signs of a problem are a cardiac arrest. And so we recently got the data from Seattle, King County, Washington. Cardiac arrest rates, David, since the vaccines rolled out, has skyrocketed.
Wow. And is that due to the clotting and everything going on, or what's going on with that? Why is that?
Well, it's messenger RNA is in the heart. Pfizer and Moderna are physically in the heart. That's been shown by Crossan and colleagues. And they have the genetic code that produces the spike protein. That's been shown by Bohmeyer and colleagues. So the vaccine is physically in the heart, producing the spike protein, causing inflammation and damage, and it triggers a cardiac arrest.
Wow, that's incredible. And then another thing I've noticed you talking about a lot lately is your concern for vaccines for people who are pregnant, that not just the COVID vaccines, but vaccines in general, right?
Yeah, it doesn't look good. Remember, throughout the history of obstetrics, we never vaccinated women, never, of any vaccine, because a vaccine can trigger a reaction like a fever, and then the women can lose the baby. If they lose the baby in the first trimester, it's called a miscarriage. Middle part is called a stillbirth, and then the last part is actually a premature baby that can have intracranial hemorrhage and cerebral palsy. I mean, it's just a disaster. So we'd never want to do this. And what's happened now over about the last 20 years or so is the initiation of giving a vaccine. So it was tetanus, diphtheria, acellular pertussis. That was about 17 years ago. And now about 10 years ago, influenza. Now, since the pandemic, now COVID-19 vaccine. And in 2023, the RSV vaccine. And my analysis of this, they look like this is a bad idea. Again, we're seeing data suggesting that they do trigger all these problems. This RSV vaccine has been associated with premature delivery. In fact, the Abrivzio, which is the Pfizer RSV vaccine, it has as a warning that the vaccine causes premature delivery. So, premature babies, they require the neonatal ICU. They have high rates of intracranial hemorrhage, cerebral palsy, developmental delay. I mean, a woman would want to avoid that for sure by carrying the pregnancy to term. So my advice to pregnant women is decline all the vaccines, go natural. It's safe, it's reasonable. If someone got let's say if they got pertussis, we treat them with the Z-Pack. That's safe to use during pregnancy anyway. Like, what's the big deal?
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. But I do want to also ask you, while I have you, if you have a reaction to the criminal convictions now of 34 counts from the former president, Donald Trump, and what do you think that means for potentially being able to have accountability in government if this is going to be the new normal? I mean, how is this going to affect perhaps our desire to have a more transparent and honest government as it relates to its health policies, public health policies?
Yeah, I'm not a legal scholar, and I can't make certainly any legal expert statements. But just as a citizen, I'm concerned. It has at the surface, a tone that so much of due process was ignored. So much of legal process of what courts this should be in, state court versus federal court, the statute of limitations, all of these things, the timing of this, and now this conviction, and the prospects of appeal do not look good. This makeup of the appellate court looks like that's going to be against the former president.
Yeah.
So we're really seeing unprecedented legal maneuvers. Sentencing is set for July. We don't know what that's going to mean. I know independent Robert F. Kennedy has come out with a statement actually supporting Trump, saying that this is wrong. This shouldn't happen. He's never been convicted of anything before, so it's a first time felony conviction. It's so hard to know what to make of. He's approaching 80 years old. What's gonna be gained from imprisonment or federal fines? I think what a lot of people want to know, David, is this going to actually impair his ability to get elected? And I just can't know. You're following this closer than I am. What do you think?
I think that it's going to backfire because, America is really a fan of underdogs and people who they perceive to be unfairly targeted. And, it's one thing to, make a criminal action that's pretty flagrant, but these things look like basically the equivalent of jaywalking as it relates to politicians and their everyday behavior. So I'm I think this is going to continue to backfire. I think if they want to make sure he gets the biggest turnout in any presidential election in history, put him in a prison cell and watch what happens. So it'll get the visual of that, do you know how many people, it too. I mean, there's a lot of medical freedom, people who fight for food freedom, health freedom, they get thrown the book at too. I don't know if you're familiar with Amos Miller, the Amish farmer who's been going through federal and state prosecutions against him because he sells raw milk and he's a Amish farmer and he refuses to put chemicals on his meat and stuff. And, he's gone through hell, and the more they persecute him, the more his movement grows. So that tends to be the way it works. And there's a lot of people out there that, I think would react very anti anybody that wants to, make jailing political opponents the new normal. I think that's going to really peel away a lot of the independents that might have gone for some of the other candidates, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, I had a chance to speak at the Libertarian Convention. It was my first speech at a national presidential nomination convention. So Robert F. Kennedy spoke before me the night before. I held the main morning session, and then Trump came in after me. And I don't know if you heard what happened when Trump was there. Did you hear?
No, well, I saw a little bit of it. He was getting booed and stuff. Yeah.
Well, when I was on the crowd was fairly respectful, and I got standing ovations. I was careful. I managed my time fine, but I was kind of accosted by a guy afterwards who accused me of spreading misinformation. He was very tense, and his point was that the virus doesn't exist, that none of this actually ever happened.
Oh, okay.
And so some people, take that extreme view that this is, and to them, you can't give them enough proof. They go, nope, that doesn't convince me. I'm not convinced. You're like, well, what killed grandmother? Well, it was just the flu. And I said, well, no, the flu doesn't cause blood clots in the lungs. Try again.
Yeah.
But the response to people who don't think the virus exists is that the SARS-CoV-2 virus is clearly cultured. It's been isolated because the Chinese make a vaccine out of it. The genetic code's been known, carefully studied. It's cohesive. You can see the virus on electron microscopy, exploding out of cells after it replicates. And then, of course, it causes a unique syndrome. The COVID syndrome is not influenza. So, as a doctor, I have no problem understanding that the virus exists, and we use specific therapy.
Is that what they call the terrain theory or whatever?
It's kind of related. Germ versus terrain says that the germs really don't matter. We all have them. It's just weaknesses in our immune system that allow an infection, but the infection does exist. Anyhow, he was kind of ushered away, and I took questions, and then Trump came in. I had to catch a plane, but I don't know if you saw some of the video where Trump was being booed, and he's trying to give his speech, and he's well composed. And the people, and this one woman's on a chair, and she's holding a sign, and she's becoming raucous. And one of the security guards, it was a guy who I was talking to earlier in the morning because they were talking about Trump coming. So one of the security guards has to go over and subdue this woman, and she's this skinny woman. She's got the sign, so he tries to pull her down off the chair, and then she does like a big flop, then she's on the floor and she's scrambling around. The chairs are falling everywhere. I mean, it is a giant commotion and a fracas. And I could tell you, I was so glad I was out of there. And it does make you wonder, why did Trump go, and why did Robert F. Kennedy go? And who they ended up nominating for president is... his name is, I believe it's Miles. Let me make sure I get this right. It's not somebody who I listen to, Libertarian. I'll type it in here.
Chase Oliver, isn't it?
Chase Oliver, thank you. So it's Chase Oliver, who I didn't get a chance to meet. Now, apparently he's, an LGBT advocate. He's 38 years old. The libertarians are very much kind of radical free market civil liberties people. That their mantra this year was "be ungovernable." Just wild. Now, their vice presidential candidate, I did get a chance to spend time with Mike Dermatt. He's very reasonable, very executive. I thought Mike, would have been. I could see him as being presidential. I just don't know the other person or not. So it's too bad.
Well, you probably have a lot of fans in the Libertarian Party with what your views are. I would imagine you probably have a lot of fans there.
Well, I thought my views matched, but now I'm not so concerned. I'm concerned. I'm not so sure it's a good match. I'm liberal in some ways in terms of civil liberties. Liberal meaning I really do believe that we should decide what happens to our bodies and things of this nature. I don't want the government with surveillance, on my phone or in my house, what have you. So I guess I'm kind of liberal in that perspective. But I'm not so liberal when it comes to, let's say, transgender in children.
Yeah.
I just have a gut feeling that's wrong, that's not working out very well. I don't know if you saw, but UK just banned puberty blockers altogether.
Yeah.
Texas, we've banned transgender medicine based actually on my expert report to the Attorney General. We banned it last September 5th, 2023. Transgender medicine is banned in the state of Texas. I think there's about 15 states that have banned. I mean, that's how bad it is. Transgender medicine, the puberty blockers cause disease and headaches, sleep disturbance, acne. But after about a month, irreversible changes. The surgeries are disfiguring, sterilizing, get infections easily, and then the whole package increases the burden of psychiatric care and mortality. And it's based on that, we should just shut it down. This is not good. The kids just need to go through normal puberty, become who they're going to become as adults. If they want to live out the fantasy in another gender, that's their choice. But during childhood, we need to leave that 18-year period alone. And that's basically what's happening. So I wouldn't align, I guess, very well with the libertarians there. I don't know what their viewpoint is.
Well, you got a lot of libertarian like Ron Paul would be on your side about that. There's conservative libertarians and progressive libertarians. And I think the Ron Paul faction of that movement did not have as much momentum because they didn't have their main guy. They wanted Dave Smith to run. He was the comedian, and he was their biggest figure they were going to run. And he bowed out at the last bit there because of family issues. But I think in general, it's going to take a coalition of people who really are sick and tired of tyranny. And again, it's the battle of the future is going to be between people who are pro-human and anti-human. There's a lot of people who are neo-Malthusians, and I say neo because they're more radical than Malthus himself was, who was a Christian theologian. And they want to go further than that, and they really think and they truly believe that this world is not going to be sustainable with the amount of people that are projected to be here in the next few decades, and they really want to cull the herd, and they think it's a moral imperative to do so. And they think this is going to be with AI and everything, they're going to have the ability to automate the deficit in human population that will be created, and they want to kind of cull the herd and have a little bit more enjoyable environment for their people, So, I mean, unfortunately, that's an ideology which is extremely powerful and very popular amongst the aging elites, and it's something that we're going to have to deal with. So you're at the forefront of battling that because they really don't want to have medical doctors in the public square who are really pro-human. If you're pro-human, it's not really a big thing right now. You can't really be pro-human and have a lot of success. You're supposed to be anti-human in the sense of saying, don't breed, the planet's going to go to hell, eat bugs, eat seed oil sludge, don't get sunlight, don't hang out with friends, don't get on the earth and go on a nature trail park. I mean, just sit in the home, stare at a blue light, and get Amazon to deliver your seed oil sludge snacks and everything. I mean, nobody wants to live this lifestyle when they really think about it, but
Well, it's interesting, these people who think there's too many useless eaters out there, they go to any restaurant in Europe or the United States, any Western country, there's not enough servers.
Yeah.
There's not enough service workers. Try to get some work done at your house. Try to get a new roof on or get your lawn cut. There's not enough workers.
Yeah.
David, there's not enough workers.
Yeah.
So, all these global elitists, sooner or later, they're going to want some service.
Yeah.
And if you trim all the rest of us down, the world works on markets.
Yeah.
And the labor market is already constrained. And if we really constrain the labor market, which is happening with the COVID-19, the vaccines, the working age people are dying, the labor market will become more constrained. And it just means goods and services don't flow. Now, when you get on a plane and you start to fly around this world, you realize the vast majority of this world is unpopulated. Unpopulated. Oh, my Lord. You fly around Australia, you see hundreds of miles of beach that's undeveloped, hundreds of miles of beach.
Yeah.
And you fly across even little tiny countries like Israel, it's wide open. There's no people, virtually nobody south of Hebron. I mean, just not nobody. So
Yeah.
it's just completely, this world is wide open.
Yeah.
And so this idea that somehow we're constrained by resources or by food, none of that's true. There's going to be a manufactured food shortage in Europe from all these ridiculous European Commission regulations on nitrogen waste from cows and the green space regulations. It's an artificially manufactured things. You saw the farmers spraying, cow dung on buildings in Germany and Netherlands and Ireland, etc. Bird flu is going to create an artificial food shortage in the United States. It looks like the writing is on the wall. None of this needs to happen. None of this needs to happen. We just need to somehow find a way of extinguishing this crazy groupthink. Just go back to normal. Let's have growing markets. Let's have families. Let's, pursue life, liberty, and happiness.
Yeah. Do you ever think, Ron Paul was a OBGYN doctor from Texas? He delivered 4,000 babies. When he retired, he ran for office. Now you're in Texas and you are a celebrated doctor. When you have had enough working in the medical profession, would you ever consider running for office for liberty on that side of things?
David, it looks like, you have a lot of guts in getting in the ring and wrestling and boxing and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have the guts. I mean, just look at what a difficult field it is in terms of, people getting beat up and look what former President Trump is going through.
Yeah.
And look at Bolsonaro down in Brazil. I mean, same thing. The guy's going through, I don't know if you heard the recent, remember Bolsonaro's the guy, listen, he goes, I'm not taking the vaccine.
Yeah.
He said, I'm gonna, take hydroxychloroquine if I need it. It turns out, you know what they're busting him for on like a major crime? Is that he had a fake vaccine card.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think about this. People are getting busted all over. There's all kinds of things. Julian Assange has been held forever. Why can't he get a court case and, go one way or the other? There seems to be widespread corruption that's spread in. So I wouldn't know how to navigate, but I know one thing, David, is I can communicate with the country and the world on healthcare for sure.
Yeah.
And I've reached big audiences. I just had my 6th show on Daystar. The 5th one before that, I reached over 2 billion people.
Wow.
That's better than any presidential candidate. That's better than any other media commentator.
Yeah.
So I know I can do it. And I've been true to my opinions that have been careful, and my thoughts have evolved over time. I'm big enough and strong enough to admit when I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Now we need to have a president who's big enough and strong enough to admit they're wrong. We have to.
Yeah.
And right now, our 2 major contenders, they're the same on that. They cannot admit they're wrong on anything. They're the same on pandemic response. They will not admit any shortcomings. They're the same on the vaccines. They're the same on big spending.
Yeah.
I don't know. This doesn't look too good. I mean, I want some different choices. Even my mom, who's a big Trump supporter, even my mom has said, she lives in senior living. My mom has said, listen, I don't want to see a rematch.
Yeah.
So many average people in America do not want to see a rematch. No, if you told me the Super Bowl next year is going to be the Niners and the Chiefs, I'd say, listen, I don't want to see a rematch. I want to see something else.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, I want people to know, where can they, because I know you've developed a lot of protocols for people who want to stay healthy. So while we wait for that rematch or whatever else is going to come in the future, disease X or monkeypox 2, swine flu deluxe, whatever it is next that these Igors and their Frankensteins are cooking up, where can we go to find out how to take care of some of our health needs that you've got?
Well, go to my personal website, petermcculloughmd.com. That'll take you everywhere, including my clinical practice at Well Integrative Medicine, McCullough Protocol for early treatment, and now McCullough Spike Detoxification Protocol. They are there. Again, copyrighted, but not patented. Use the concepts Find the products, wellness company, twc.health. Join as a member, use promo code COURAGE, join as a member for free. And then you can get access to all the products there. Follow my podcast, McCullough Report, on America Out Loud Talk Radio, every Saturday and Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Then on the podcast circuit after that, my Substack, the leading Substack in the world, medical Substack, Courageous Discourse. Sign on, almost all the content's free. Get updates every day. I know you're getting it. My book, Courage to Face COVID, the leading book in its genre, the only COVID book that was actually censored by Amazon for about 12 days until we crushed them with so much feedback from the public. And then, of course, get out there and follow me on social media. I've got the #1 Twitter account of any doctor that sees patients. And David, like you, I am firing on all channels now because I see a sweeping wave of censorship. And our answer to censorship is independent media and diversity.
Yeah. Well, you're like a modern day Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin wasn't elected, but he was a genius. He was a scientist. He was a doctor, and he was an influencer in terms of setting the course of the thought of his time. And I think that's what you're doing as well. So I'm of mixed feeling too. I look at someone like you and I say, man, that's a true statesman, someone who doesn't want the power, but takes time to really help people meticulously. And I know you do because, I've seen it firsthand that you'll spend time with people. You're not someone that's trying to meter your time with people. You have a true heart for human life, and that's what matters at the end of the day. And yet, like you said, you go on big programs, you go on small shows, you go on medium shows, and you fight the fight no matter what. And we need more people like you doing that. So thank you for what you're doing. It's really important.
Thank you.
All right, take care.